Hello everyone, Santer here, and welcome to my life and channel update video for June of 2026. Once this month ends, we are theoretically halfway through the year, at least in terms of month count, but I actually haven't sat down and calculated out when we've been 182.5 days through the year or whatever. Is that what it would need to be? 365, 180, 182.5. So I don't know exactly where the actual halfway mark of the year is, but who cares? I mean, somebody, but not this video. So, June has been a very eventful month, although a lot of that eventfulness feels like it was front loaded. Just looking through my notes of things going on, we had the announcement of Guild Wars 3, which is very exciting news. It did feel like, why do they announce this so early, though, if they're not doing beta stuff until over a year away? And then it's yeah, but they're also doing different things in Guild Wars 2, and the announcement for the next expansion for that should theoretically be happening soon. And so they probably adjusted some of that schedule stuff in terms of the timing in order to make sure people knew what was going on. And they also came out with a bunch of follow-up stuff talking about the investments that they being ArenaNet, are planning on making in the Guild Wars franchise in general, how all the games are different and they want to keep investing in all of them, how they've been ramping up investment in Guild Wars 1, which has now been called Guild Wars Reforged, and I will never remember to call it that on a general basis, but, but that they intend to continue investing in Guild Wars 2, and I think it's really good news that they're we want to go back to old areas and polish things up, and the Zhaitan fight being mentioned, I'm yeah. Recently, I have somebody I play with regularly on Sundays, and we've typically done Guild Wars 1, but we've decided to play through the story of Guild Wars 2 together, and when that announcement was made, it just been a week or two since we went through the Zhaitan fight, and it's yeah, this needs some help. So, obviously, there's only so much they can do to rehabilitate it, but I am excited to see whatever it is that they do with it. So that is exciting news. So all of the Guild Wars news is very exciting stuff, and there's continued to be things. The mobile release happened recently, and while I have zero interest of playing it on mobile because I don't do almost anything on my phone aside from texts and occasionally looking some stuff up and taking pictures and sometimes playing music. I don't use it for playing games or whatever. It just, most of the time, it just kind of sits there and hangs out. I don't go on social media on my phone, or I do that on my computer, where I have a real keyboard and can type things with a real keyboard because I hate typing on my phone. But anyway, it's very good news for the game, so I'm very excited about that for the game. And it also came with a huge skill update. For those who didn't see it, I did record. I know I've kind of become known for reviewing all the skills in Guild Wars 1, at least a little bit. There's a bunch of people who have watched those videos, those skill review videos, so I have been trying to keep up on it, and spent this entire last stream on Friday, this is last week, for me, 4.5 hours just going through all of those update notes on the wiki and just testing stuff out and then looking at things and getting a feel for stuff. So going to be a lot of difference, going to be a lot of adjustment, because you can review stuff, but until you've actually spent some time with it, which obviously I hadn't at that point, it's hard to know for sure how things are actually going to feel in terms of the practical differences. But a lot of exciting Guild Wars news, like I said. And obviously Guild Wars 1 tends to be where a lot of my focus is on stuff that I do more publicly, but I do enjoy Guild Wars 2 to an extent, and Dragon Bash was happening and whatnot. So I'm glad that they're going to be continuing to work on that, and that they recognize this is also a game we want to be supporting. And something that it just, as a longtime Guild Wars 1 fan, when they said, we think not putting a live team back on Guild Wars 1 was a mistake or a misstep, I appreciated hearing that. And that it feels like ArenaNet has said, this is something that, we've kept it up, but we've seen as we have invested in it, as we have treated Guild Wars 1 as worthy of keeping going and continuing to do stuff, and the players are showing up in it. And, I think that there's something in general to pick up from that for the game industry. And ArenaNet itself is such an anomaly of a studio in that it has people who have been there for decades. multiple decades, and that's just so rare in the game industry. So I'm very happy for them. I'm happy that they take risks and try things, and that they're given the leeway to do that, and that they also recognize that like the way that they design games means that they are for different, like they're targeting different audiences. And so they want to keep all of them going. So anyway, that's enough rambling about Guild Wars 1, I think. There's also been some very significant book things for me this month. I finished the first, I don't know what you want to call it. I guess the novel that I've been working on is now in what you'd call beta, because I'm doing some, it's time for beta reading. So I've finished like what I was doing with it with my initial pass throughs. Now it's time for other people to have their eyes on it. So I'm not looking for submissions or anything like that. I already have the people that I know that I want to contact with it, and I'm going to kind of do some stuff in phases, I think, probably. But it's very exciting to have it be at that point. For those who are curious, once I finally like had it together and ready for that, it's probably adjusted now, but it is 128,500 words on the dot. Now that includes things like chapter headings and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a wonky word count, but it is a pretty decent length book. Fairly strong length. I quite like it, but I really want to know what other people think. So I'm looking forward to getting some feedback on that as people have availability in their schedules for doing that. But I'm approaching it in a very specific way for getting that beta reading. But it's very exciting to hit that milestone. I also have another book that I've been working on a friend about game design that is also in the beta reading phase, and that's also been exciting to start getting some feedback on that as well. So it's been a very like book accomplishment month, and this also kind of like harkens back to like one of my goals for this year is to finish a major project, and having my novel at this point feels like that's, you know, a step closer to accomplishing that goal for this year. And also, like, I was reflecting as looking at back on stuff, is like, oh, I think I started working on this book in like July of last year, roughly June, July. So it's been about a year, and I feel like writing a book of that length in that time, like obviously there's more steps to actually getting it done, but that feels pretty good, and I'm pretty pleased about that. So it's very encouraging to me, just like personally as a creative. So, but it also means that like, you know, I finished kind of doing that, and now I'm a little bit in a, okay, that's not my main focus at the moment mode. What am I doing with myself a little bit? So I've been having some other things that I'm kind of like poking around at a little bit. But that's enough about my projects, I think. Is there anything else I wanted to mention about stuff that I've been working on? I'm happy with how things are going. I mentioned seeing 4 owls on a walk with my sister. That was pretty cool. Yeah, so there's just been a lot of other things. It is important to imbibe media, so that way you can get different experiences. But sometimes like some stuff really strikes you. So I've been watching That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime season 4. That anime has been continuing. It's ongoing. But also like one episode a week feels way too slow for the Reddit, which I want to be able to watch that. So I went ahead and started reading the books again. And then I have 1 through 9 and then like 18 through 22. So there's a sizable gap there, and guess where the anime is right now? Yeah, it's in that gap. I don't remember how the things break down. I haven't looked it up again. I have read through all the series, but most of them I got from the library. So that I don't remember the breakdown for 10 and 11 and how that kind of filters out. But I finished rereading that this month. So I've been eagerly anticipating more of the anime. I do intend to get the rest of the series, that gap that I am missing, at some point in time, but probably not until the autumn, just from a cash flow standpoint, I guess is the phrase. And the things that I got most recently were actually Wise Man's Pupil, the books in that series that I hadn't read yet that are out in English. So that was... I waited until book 16 came out and then got the last 4, so 13, 14, 15, and 16. And I read I finished book 14 and started 15 at the start of this month. So I read through 15 and 16 this month, and I quite like that series. It's very different. It's a very, in my mind, she professes herself people of the wise man, which I usually just call wise man's people. Let's see. I've got which one is this? Like, yeah, here's novel 15. I got like that series I find to be very cozy is the way that I'd describe it. But I've been really enjoying the vibes on it. Just again, it feels very cozy. So, it is an isekai type story, but it has some interesting mysteries and stuff. But yeah, like I said, cozy vibes. Very different from Slime in that regard. Let's see. I'm scanning through other stuff. Yeah, reading through my entire book in one day was quite the endeavor. Oh yeah, Quake's 30th anniversary was on June 22nd, apparently. I have fond memories of playing through that game as a kid, and I actually have it on my Switch and played through it a few years ago on that. Good nostalgic times. There's something about revisiting media that you enjoy that is very pleasant. But the other thing that I've also just really come to appreciate is that a story you only experience once is half enjoyed. Like, you get so much more out of something the second time through, at least if it's like at all reasonably well done. There's been some exceptions to that. For example, what is it called now? Why is it falling out of my head? The Force Awakens, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That's a movie that each time I watch it gets a little worse, unfortunately. But if something's done well, then often re-experience, like this, the second time you go through it, you pick up on a ton of things that now that you have the full context of everything, you're like, oh, I see how this detail slots in or fits in or whatever. So that's been something that I've appreciated. For example, going through Slime again, because this is like my second time reading through. That time I got reincarnated as a slime and seeing like, oh, there are all of these things that I kind of missed the significance of because I didn't know they were significant until I got into the future, as it were, and went back to the past and went through things again. So that's something that has definitely been striking me. And the next series that I'm wanting to read is Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody, because I remember watching that anime. Because like the premise that was presented to me for the anime was somebody who is developing their game ends up in the world of that game, and then it felt like I'd abandoned that pretty quickly. And I was curious, like, how did things fit out? So I wanted to, and I've been seeing the light novels at Barnes and Noble when I've gone there, and at a fairly high number. So I'm like, oh, I kind of want to check these out and see what's actually going on in this series, because it felt like a very interesting premise that felt like it got abandoned pretty quickly. I'm using a lot of qualifying language there for a reason, but it definitely, like, I think that there's more that I want to dig into there, and it looked like our library system doesn't actually have the light novels but has the manga, so I thought I'd read that, but for some reason it's been in transit hell, and I don't know why. So we'll probably be investigating that soon, because it's probably been a few weeks that we've been waiting with it on hold. But we have a good library system here overall. It's just every now and then something wonky can happen. But I've been wanting to read that. Like I said, they have the manga there at the library, so that probably goes into more detail. But I rewatched the anime, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I was not following things properly the first time through, because it's just how it is. So I've actually been rewatching a number of series. The other day I was kind of in a wonky mood, and I rewatched The Reincarnation of the Strongest Exorcist in Another World, and that one also does some really interesting things that I'm like absorbing better the second time through. Now I'm thinking about toast being bread baked twice. I remember Carrie of Playframe exclaiming about that, but I definitely am like, oh, pick up more stuff that way. There's been some other shows that I've been enjoying. It's been very interesting because the the summer or the spring season has been winding down. The summer season's starting to get going. So I've also been enjoying Witch Hat Atelier, like a lot of people have. That I don't know if that's wound down. If it had only 13 episodes, wow, did it pick a heck of a spot to end on. Hopefully it has another season, if so. But 13 episodes is definitely atypical. It didn't seem to have one today, which is when I'd have expected another one. And it's not been marked as continuing. So, but I ended up, let's see, because I've been like wanting these books to read, I've been kind of having a little bit of a gap there. So I decided to watch through, like I started Sword Art Online. I decided to go ahead and watch through the rest of the first season of that, and ended up binging it. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there. A lot of things I maybe don't like as much. Villains that are like, why are they a villain? Because they embody the most toxic form of, like, the most intensely toxic aspects of the patriarchy. Not like they're a very compelling villain because boy are they evil, but like I'd rather more interesting villains because it's a very easy way to make somebody a very evil villain. And in the second half of the season definitely has some issues with that, but scanning through my notes here. Lord of Mysteries started getting like some sort of special bonus season. I don't even know what schedule it's on. It's not on like the simulcast pages or anything. It's just like randomly, here's an episode. Oh, 3 days later, here's another episode. I guess why not? That show has crazy good vibes. Very, like, the presentation on it is superb. And there's a lot of very interesting world building stuff that it does. So I've been enjoying that, and I was surprised to get more, but happy to as well. And I guess the other thing to sort of mention, I mean, I could talk about a number of other shows that I've been watching. Again, it's important to ingest stuff because you get ideas, and it makes you think about things. And at least if you approach stuff with an eye towards that, of like, okay, how does this handle things? How might I want to approach what I'm doing as inspired by how other things do it? But I also have started playing Lords of the Fallen, the new one that has lowercase o and t in of the. I have to say, like, I want to play through it, but it has not been gripping me the way that I would have hoped. Like, it's cool that it has some inbuilt randomization features and other things, and it's very clear that the developers have put a good deal of effort into trying to make it a neat game. And I'm not entirely sure why it hasn't been hitting me. I think there's just something about some of the aesthetic that is like part of that. And I'm not entirely sure. I've not played a whole lot, and I do want to play more. I want to see if they have more variety in their environments. I would hope that they do. And there's some very interesting systems going on that I want to dig into more. But the wither damage system in particular is really interesting to me. So wither damage is like temporary damage that if you take a normal damage hit, fully applies. But as you damage enemies, you heal wither damage. So it's this very, and like critically, when you're blocking, damage that you take, because like you'll reduce the amount of damage that you take, but the damage that you do take is taken as wither damage. So as long as you keep blocking, you can absorb hits and then recover your health. And it also has an interesting way of handling ranged stuff where it's a bit more built in. And has, like, when you rest at their bonfire equivalent, you get, because it's a Souls-like, but you get your ranged ammunition back, which is really neat. I don't know if there's a way to increase your cap. I'd assume there would be, but I haven't encountered one that I've noticed at this point in time. And I tend to be fairly thorough about trying to read stuff, but it's very possible that I've missed something. Or it's very possible that I'm just not far enough in to have encountered something. But I think that wither damage mechanic is very interesting in that it creates incentive to block well, but also, or like to make sure that you're blocking damage. Obviously you can dodge as well, but like if you block, then it allows you to be able to heal yourself, basically. They put a bit more emphasis on well-timed blocks than I personally like. I've been watching Playframe play through Lies of P, which is another Souls-like, P being Pinocchio in this case. But it seems to have a somewhat similar sense to the way that you take regain. I think they call it like regain damage. I forget exactly what they call it, but it's like blocking regain or whatever. But when you block and you take damage, you can recover that by hitting the enemy. A similar-ish mechanic to that, but a little bit different in implementation. And I find it interesting that these mechanics are here. But they also have a similar thing of like if you block at good timing, that also can have benefits for how your combat's playing out. And I think that it feels a bit wonky in the sense of sort of the feeling of reward or whatever. And like one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to Souls games in particular is that what people tend to talk about when it comes to like Dark Souls, for example, are boss fights, right? Elden Ring will also falls into this, but slightly reduced because of the open world nature. But usually with these series, people are talking about the boss fights. It's all about the boss fights. And to me, I've never cared that much for the boss fights. Like that's not why I enjoy the games. And like I can enjoy a boss fight sometimes, and some of the reward and thrill of managing to overcome a boss. Like I remember the first time beating Ornstein and Smough and having some weird save file issues because of going across computers and cloud sync things and whatever. And it's like I'm going to keep the file that beat Ornstein and Smough, because that was such a big accomplishment at the time. The first time doing it. Isn't anywhere near as big of an accomplishment to me now because I'm a lot more practiced at those games, but. Like there's definitely been some fights that have been memorable for me. I remember Fume Knight as well, but like I didn't care that much for Artorias, or like I don't think I've ever beaten Manus without using Bochis, from outside the arena, because like the boss fights have never been what's significant to me. And I think the Dark Souls games understand sort of a balance between like exploration and boss fights, where they are at least as concerned, particularly the Dark Souls trilogy, which is more set up, I guess. The open world nature of Elden Ring makes encounter design a lot more chaotic, I guess, in terms of like how our players going to be approaching this. But Dark Souls 1 is especially good at this, where but like all of the Dark Souls games are fairly good at it, where the encounter is itself its own sort of challenge, and figuring out how to overcome that is interesting. And that's something that I have personally liked about the design of those games. And I feel like something that a lot of Souls likes that have been inspired by From Software's work tend to do is they tend to put more emphasis on the boss fights than on the exploration. And I feel like From Software is a little bit better at weighting things towards the exploration component, where that element also feels more rewarding in some way, or more valuable. And I'm not sure quite how Lords of the Fallen will kind of stack up in that regard, but it definitely feels like it's a I'm not going to say a mistake because that implies incorrect things, but it's that way. Souls likes, for me, tends to not be as interesting because they tend to emphasize boss fights, which I'm less interested in. Like one of the things that I like about Guild Wars 1 is that it doesn't do boss fights particularly. Like bosses, for the most part, are stronger versions of regular enemies, but in very like specific ways. Or like Pokemon boss fights are, a trainer with a particularly, a challenging, perhaps because of your level differences or whatever, but like the way boss fights work in a lot of the games that I have historically enjoyed, often are more like amped up versions of the normal fights, and not as mechanically distinct or unique of an encounter as they tend to be in Souls-likes. And so I play them not. I don't play Souls games for the boss fights, and I feel like a lot of people do. And so when people are copying from software, copying is not as. I don't mean that in a harsh way, but it can sound that way. But when they're trying to make a game in the same vein, the emphasis they're much more likely to put emphasis on boss fights, which I don't like play the games for. So it makes them less my thing, even though I'm quite fond of From Software's titles, generally speaking. So that's just something that I've kind of thought about a lot lately, and it feels sort of relevant to just talking about Lords of the Fallen. But it does have some interesting stuff, and I need to experience more with the Umbral mechanic in particular, where like if you die outside of the Umbral, whatever they call it, you end up in the Umbral world and have a chance to like recover some of your health and try to endure a bit more. And it's a harsher place. And if you die there, then you go back to your checkpoint. But it's very interesting in some of the differences it does in its mechanics. So, but I need to experience more of it. And it just hasn't gripped me enough for me to launch into it. And I think that covers most of what I want to talk about for this month. I do feel like it has been a good month. Like I said, I feel like a lot of the stuff has been kind of front loaded. I've been continuing to enjoy Magic the Gathering, of course. Secrets of Strixhaven have been doing some deck edits. You can see a deck over my shoulder here that I'm in the middle of editing, for example. Just because there's a lot of commander decks that I made a while back, and then a bunch of sets have come out since then. So, like I had a food deck that I made around close to Wilds of Eldraine release, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set had a bunch of food related things in it, for example. So I wanted to do some updates there. But I want to play more Paper Magic. I have the events that I go to weekly, and that is not enough for me. I want more like casual playing of it. But someday. I trust someday. Anyway, I think that's going to go ahead and be it from me. It's been a pretty good month in terms of like significant things happening, but like I said, a lot of that front loaded. So we'll see how next month goes, how July goes. Hopefully it's maybe a little bit cooler. Man, we've had some really hot days this month. It has been like, and I know Europe's been getting hammered by a heat wave, and I can kind of sympathize a little bit. Because we had a heat wave in sort of the middle of the month as well, and that was unpleasant. But it's a little bit cooler the past like 5 days or something, so that's been nice at least. Anyway, I'm somebody who likes it around 65 Fahrenheit, which is, I don't know. I think I calculated it out with my sister, and it's like 18 1/3. Roughly 17, 18 Celsius, 17 to 19, somewhere in that range probably. Anyway, I like it a little bit cooler, comfortable for me. But it's not the weather that we get in the summer. So, all right, well, I keep rambling. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here for realsies this time. And until next month, everyone, take care and goodbye.